Start in the next minute or two, okay? All right. Usually I have to say we need everybody to settle in and quiet down, but looks like we have short attendance today. So if everybody's ready, I know I'm going to say it later on, but as long as we have the non-voters on that side, any voters, please stay to these two sections over here. Sorry, Ray. All right. We're going to call this meeting to order at, we'll call it 10:04. I would like to welcome you all to today's deliberative session for the for the town of Litchfield. My name is Steve Perry, and I'll be serving as your moderator today. I live at 5 Lidston Lane with my wife, Catherine, and our 2 kids, Hannah and Nathan, and I have now lived in town for 24 years. Let's please all stand if you're able, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, a few administrative announcements to start. Before we commence our meeting, in consideration of warrants, there's a few housekeeping matters we need to discuss. State law prohibits smoking on school grounds. The restrooms are located in the hallway. Food and drink are not supposed to be in this auditorium, but there's special exceptions for those of us up here on the stage. The emergency exits are the way you entered the building. There's also an exit right here. We can also go out here and go out the back. Okay, so now we'll start with introductions. I'd like to have the chairs and the committee leaders introduce themselves. We'll start by, my introduction is of my assistant moderator, Steve Weber. And now we will go do school board first. We'll have Chairman Andrew Cutter.
Here we go.
I was going to say we should have done a sound check on that side.
We did. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out today. I am Andrew Carter, the chair of the school board. And with us on the school board side, we have Heidi Ames. We also have Christina Harrison. We have Peter Plansky. Not able to join us today, we have Matthew Shoemaker. We also have some district representatives joining us. We have Superintendent Brian O'Connell. We have our business administrator, Julie Darling. And we also have Gordon Graham, who's our legal counsel. And also with Gordon Graham today is Rachel, also legal counsel. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chairman John David Sun of the Budget Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Cutter. Good morning, everyone. John David Sun, Chair of the Budget Committee. With us today, we have Scott Taylor, our Vice Chair, Brian Burke, William Hayes, Doug LaPlante, Terry Douglas. We have Andrew Cutter, who's our school board rep, Bob Leary, who's our select board rep, and unable to be here today is Derek Barca.
All right. This is the boring part. I have to read the rules and procedures, so if I get this quick, it's about 6.5 minutes, so here we go. Litchfield operates under Senate Bill 2 procedures. This means that we will review, discuss, and amend as necessary the warrant articles presented today for vote on the official ballot on Election Day. Election Day will be March 11th, 2025, and the polls will be open from 7 to 7, and will be down in the gymnasium on the other end of the building. If we make no amendments to these warrant articles, they'll appear on the ballot as you see them today. If we do make amendments, they will appear on the ballot as you've amended them. For this deliberative session, the moderator will read each warrant article and recognize the speaker. The moderator will then open the floor for discussion, questions, and amendments if appropriate. If a voter wishes to propose an amendment, he or she must present the moderator with a signed written draft that includes their property address. The moderator will then review the amendment for completeness and adherence to the law. You'll notice that we have little postcards there on each side of the stage in front of the podiums, along with pencils. The moderator will read each proposed amendment so that all voters can understand, and afterwards will seek a second for the motion. Once moved and seconded, I will recognize the sponsoring voter to represent the motion, to present the motion. I can't talk today. Index cards are available, as I told you, at the front of the stage, in front of the podiums. Note that state law prohibits amendments if they change the primary subject matter of the original warrant, nor can negative motions to amend be valid so that a no be tallied as a yes. We cannot have more than one amendment under consideration at any one time, so there's no amendments to amendments. Every effort will be made to give recognition to all of those wishing to speak. If we choose to speak, you must come down to one of the microphones up front at the end of each aisle. Board members wishing to speak offering their own opinion or an amendment as a citizen must exit the stage and use one of the microphones down front. When speaking, please clearly state your name and street address. All comments are to be directed to me, the moderator. The moderator will then prompt for a response. Comments are not meant to go into a long dialogue, as continued dialogue may not be allowed in the interest of time and others. Typically, one follow-up question is allowed. After that, please move to the back of the line to exercise fairness to all. Personal attacks and profanity will not be permitted. Please try to avoid redundancy. I can't say that enough. Any motion to end debate must be made immediately after stating your name and address. The moderator will seek a second to your motion and then put the question to the voters. If successful, the moderator will immediately call for a vote to the question. A motion to adjourn will not be accepted until the warrant articles have been discussed and finalized. According to state law, town and school district meetings are run by what's called moderator rules. This means that, as I am doing now, the moderator sets the ground rules for the conduct of the meeting. However, law also allows you, the voters, to overturn my rulings by a simple majority vote. To overturn the moderator's ruling, a voter may request a point of order overturning the moderator immediately after the moderator rules. The moderator will then recognize the voter who may, if desired, explain his or her point of order. The moderator will then poll the voters, and if the majority agrees with the voter, then the moderator's rulings will be overturned. Motion to table articles will not be in order unless it is made to table a specific time, made to a specific time and place in today's agenda before the close of this meeting. A motion to reconsider an article after it is closed will not be in order unless there is no warrant under consideration, and until it is seconded and approved by a simple majority vote. Reconsidered articles must be discussed and the closure reached before the end of this meeting. A motion to restrict reconsideration of any and all previous warrants will not be in order unless there is no other warrants under consideration. The example is between warrants. It must be seconded and approved by a simple majority vote. Only those people that are on the checklist as qualified voters are permitted to vote at any time. If the moderator receives a complaint or notices a non-voter voting, I will then require the non-voter to leave the auditorium. As you came into the meeting today, the ballot clerks gave each voter a sheet of yes/no ballots. It's the blue page that we all received today. These are yours for secret ballots. Please do not leave them on the floor behind you in the seating area. When the meeting comes to a close, either leave them on the outside table or up here on the stage. The moderator must conduct a secret yes/no ballot when 5 or more voters make a signed written request to the moderator prior to a voice, hand, or standing vote on an article. The moderator will conduct a recount of any secret ballot immediately following any vote that yields less than a 10% difference in votes. The moderator must conduct a secret yes/no ballot when 7 or more voters challenge any verbal, hand, or standing vote immediately after the results are announced and before any other business has begun. This challenge can be made verbally or in writing. Any secret yes/no vote will be collected by the moderator, the assistant moderator, and our clerk, or any persons I appoint at that point in time. Those votes will be collected down in front by everyone wishing to vote. No person may hand in more than one vote. Any persons needing assistance are to remain seated, and a designee will come to them to retrieve their vote. Approval of all warrant articles, amendments, and deliberative sessions shall be by a simple majority. A voice or hand vote will be the primary methods for voting today. If it is not clearly distinguishable by voice, a hand vote will be required. Speakers as well as voters, please refrain from using acronyms. It is your prerogative to permit non-voters to speak at this meeting. It has been customary to allow employees, council, and non-registered residents to speak at these meetings. If you wish to continue to do so today, please signify by saying aye. Yes. 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 Any noes? Yes has it. Now let's begin the business part of our meeting. We have Article 1. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate an operating budget not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote for the first session for the purposes set forth herein, my God, totaling $28,456,055. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $28,154,937, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Litchfield School District or by law. Or the school board may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 13X and XVI to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Majority vote is required. The operating budget estimated tax impact per thousand is $1.90. The default budget estimated tax impact per thousand is $1.65. This was recommended by the school board by a vote of 5-0-0. This was recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 7-1-0. To speak on this article, we have Chairman of the Budget Committee, John Davidson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to take a few minutes and walk you through the process that the Budget Committee used to arrive at the warrant article today. Once I conclude with that, School Board Chair Cutter will come up and share some additional information around this article. The Budget Committee began our process by joining the School Board budget review sessions that were held November 7th and November 13th over at the fire station. These were joint sessions where building principals and department heads had an opportunity to come in and present their budget. School board members as well as budget committee members had opportunities to ask questions and gather additional information about the proposed budgets. The operating budget was delivered to the Budget Committee on October 29th of 2024. The total delivered budget was $27,690,198, and this represented a 6.62% increase from last year. The school board voted on their budget at the November 20th, 2024 meeting and reduced the overall operating budget by $105,880.90. Then, beginning on November 21st, the Budget Committee reviewed budget details again with the superintendent, the BA, and various department heads and principals. This was an opportunity to ask additional questions and clarifications before we began our voting process. Voting on the school operating budget occurred across two meetings on December 5th, 2024, as well as December 12th, 2024. On December 5th, the Budget Committee reduced budget line items by a total of $124,550. December 12th, the Budget Committee further reduced various budget line items by a total of $100,728. And then on January 15th, 2025, the school board further reduced various budget line items by a total of $248,273. Reductions in actions that were taken by the Budget Committee. As I mentioned on the previous slide, those amounts totaled $225,278. They were comprised of cuts to salaries and benefits for $167,000, buildings and grounds for $41,945, Litchfield Middle School for $11,333, and technology for $5,000. This left us with a revised total school budget operating of $27,110,766, a food service budget line item of $770,289, and a grants line item of $575,000. Totaled together, this is the number that we see in the first warrant article of $28,456,055. Some of the major drivers that the superintendent and his team presented as we began the budget process in the fall included items under personnel, notably the LEA salaries that were voted on last year's warrant article 3. That amount was $438,961. Non-union salaries, $95,409. Health insurance, which had a 12.4% increase this year to the amount of $346,257. Dental insurance had a 5% increase for $17,610. Social Security had an increase of $24,853. Additional drivers outside of personnel to the budget that we're looking at included out-of-district tuition, $185,806, regular transportation, $43,473, and then tuition that we pay for our students to go for career and technical education courses of $23,275. Now I'll invite Mr. Cutter up for additional details highlighting the operating and the default budget.
Thank you, Chairman Sun. So as Chairman Sun just presented, right, one of the drivers for the operating budget and the reasons why it increased is really tied to the general fund. And the general fund is largely up this year as a result of a decrease in revenues, which I'm going to present on the following page. One of the reasons for the decrease in revenues is, well, there's actually a variety of reasons, is really tied to a reduction in state revenue coming back to the district. What we wanted to do in this particular slide is share with you a view of the actual tax impact from the current year into next year, so you can see the estimated dollar impact that we're projecting from this current year at $15.47 at the local and state to what we're projecting in the operating budget for next year, which will be around $1.90 increase, compared to the default budget, which would be $1.65 increase. There are some factors that are still unknown at this point, so that can certainly fluctuate by the time it actually gets solidified next year. In terms of the revenue I was just speaking about a moment ago, we tried to lay it out as transparently as we absolutely could. So one of the decreases that we often refer to is special education. This current year, for special education from the state, we received $98,291. Next year, we're estimating $80,000. So we're already estimating approximately $18,000 less coming into our district than we are currently this year. Another large driver is fund balance. Every year, from a revenue perspective, we budget $200,000 in our budget to offset tax rate going back to the town at the end of our fiscal school year, which is the end of June. This current year, we actually were able to return $640,311 plus, because the land was approved, but the warrant article for the school was not approved. As a part of that warrant article, we were obligated to return the land money, right? And so we also returned the $497,000 back to the town in June. So that's a one-time return. In addition to that, we have state education grant money in which there's a $200,000 excuse me, it's not a $200,000, like approximately $400,000. Yeah, it's approximately a $400,000 phase out every 2 years. And so the difference here of $383,000 is representative of the every 2-year phase out. This is that year that we have to project that phase out, and then every 2 years thereafter, there's the same amount of money, or approximately the same amount of money, that will be phased out every 2 years. And the SWEP funds is another $105,000 that we as a district are also receiving less of. So what this means from a revenue perspective is this current year to next year, there's a $1.5 million decrease in revenue, which has a direct impact to increasing our operating budget. In terms of what's been returned to taxpayers, what we wanted to do here in this particular slide is provide a view in over the past 4 or 5 years what we've been able to return to the taxpayers, so you have that view as well. In June of 2021, at the end of the school year, we were able to return $337,895 at the end of that school year. In June of 22, we returned $285,348, and again, that's to offset the tax rate for the town. In June of 23, we returned $442,773. This current year, June of 24, or last year at this point, we returned $1,137,311, and again, that includes the one-time return of the land of $497,000. And then June of 25, this current fiscal year that we're in, we're anticipating projection to return $200,000. It's too early in our current school year to know what that actual number will be, but that's what we budget every year to return, and so we'll have a better understanding of what that is a little bit later. And Mr. Moderator, at this time, we'd like to open up to questions for Article 1.
Going to open the floor to questions or comments. Article 1.
Good day. Ronald Blinas, 15 Riverview Circle. I don't even know where to begin, but difficulty that I have with this whole situation is talked about reductions in revenue, if you will, incoming, but yet there's no control on increases in what we're seeing. There seems to be a lack of understanding of how this is going to impact. One of the things that's to note is you look at last year's operating budget that was proposed. That was 26 million, in the warrant article, 32,315. This year is 28,456,855. That's a difference of $2.4 million. That's 9.3% change from what was presented last year. I understand that the difference in the default this year, or the base, comes from the warrant articles that were also approved. The difficulty, though, is that's how much it's increased, 10% from last year in the base warrant article. This has got to stop. Incredible. Can't be happening this way. I'll speak to some of the other particular articles, but one of the things in this budget that I'd like to have answered is how much is the fund, how much do we contribute towards school lunches?
That's your question,
That's the first one.
Mr. Cutter?
In this budget.
Thank you, Mr. Oblanis. I appreciate that question. It appears to me you're including food service and grants in your comparison, which is why you're getting 10% increase.
No, I'm
You
not,
need-
because
You need to back that out in your comparison from last year to this year.
No, because you go to Article 1 of last year, the figure I read was exactly Article 1 last year.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Also, the voter contract that was approved was not as a part of that equation as well.
I understand. That's my point. From last year's proposed operating budget to this year, the increase is 9.2% when you factor in the warrant articles that were approved last year.
Right, which was
Okay,
approved by the voters.
okay, but back to my question on food service. How much is in the budget for this year's food service?
This year's food service is 761, right? Want to come up?
Just to clarify, Mr. Oblanis, are you referring to the amount that's in the operating budget for food service?
How much are we as taxpayers going to be, how much will what we have to pay affecting the tax rate? What's that number?
Yep, we're expecting to have to cover about $100,000 worth of food service this year for next year.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
About $100,000 of the food service.
I thought it was 175.
No, because when we factor in the rev, so food services is on account. So when you look at the warrant article, you see right here the 761,555 right there. So we factor in revenue that's coming in from food services plus money we get from federal government for food service. We're anticipating not. In a perfect world, food service would cover itself dollar for dollar, and it would just come in and come out as a zero net.
Okay.
We're expecting the district to have to cover about $100,000 next year in regards to food service. This past year, I can double check the number. I think last school year, it was about $135,000 that the district had to cover.
So in this year's budget is $100,000.
That's what we're anticipating, yeah.
What I'd like to do is make a motion to reduce the operating by $100,000.
I need it in writing. Okay, so we have an amendment to, the motion is to reduce the overall budget by $100,000 to what from food service?
Reduce food service.
To reduce food services to be self-funding. Okay, so I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? It is the bottom. It is the all right, I think what that was I understand. What it was, the explanation that he has written on the reason why. So the motion is to reduce the overall budget by $100K. That's the motion. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Now we'll open that up to discussion.
Yes. One of the things that's been a lot of discussion, has been ongoing for a number of years, is that initially, some years back, food service was intended to be self-funding. It has creeped up every year, and part of it is number of increases in cost. I support the fact that the cafeteria staff are doing a great job to try to minimize that. But there's some other things that I have suggested to the school board in the past to reduce that, and I haven't heard any substantive discussion about that recently. Also, in listening to the school board, a couple of items that have surfaced that has caused me to say that we're really not looking at this issue very closely. One of them was in one of the school board or budget, I can't remember specifically, there was a reference to the fact that included in the meals are fruit, and that students typically or on a regular basis do not take the fruit. And if that occurs, we do not get credit for this fruit, and essentially that is a deduction against our budget. So one of the things I simply say, well, why don't you mandate that students take the fruit, and if they don't, you increase the price that they have to pay to cover what we lose. Simple as that. The other thing is that there was reference that the per cost of a meal is very high compared to other places within the state. I don't have any figures to compare that to, but one of the things I suggested, based on what I heard, is that many students do not take hot lunch or purchase it every day. They purchase days that they choose and like to have it. One of the things I suggested to be considered, and I haven't heard any further discussion about it, is come up with a monthly meal purchase that could be put in place so that an average meal cost would be lower than the current single meal, based on the fact that it now is spread out, assuming that someone would be paying for 22 lunches in the month, typical workday. That's not been discussed. So there's things that can be done quite simply that I have not heard any discussion about, and one of the things that concerns me is the superintendent has made a comment that, yes, we pay for it now. I think we should give free lunches, breakfast and lunch, to every student. That's what his opinion was, and I just cannot agree with that. So there's my comment.
So, any discussion, questions based on this amendment?
Discussion for myself, Moderator Perry, please.
As the school
As
board?
chair,
Okay.
yes. Mr. Oblians, thank you for your comments. Very, very valuable. In terms of just on behalf of the school board, we believe wholeheartedly that our food service director does an amazing job managing the program on behalf of the district. I just want to recognize that.
Agree.
Really a fantastic job. You know, if we reflect back even just a few years ago, our food service program needed to be overhauled. And again, she's done an amazing job doing that. In terms of the budget reduction, I just want to make sure everyone's clear. That's a revenue reduction. It's not a line item reduction in the operating budget. That's clear, right?
No, it's not. Essentially, somehow in the process, we end up paying $100,000 in taxes if it's not covered, correct?
We are adding a number in our revenue to cover that offset and loss. We have to take that reduction in revenue.
The net effect is it's $100,000 of taxation.
It is. You're right. And your motion is in effect a double. It's a $100,000 reduction. And in effect, it feels like a $200,000 reduction based upon your motion. That's what the district will have to cover based upon your motion.
Whatever.
It could
I'm
be.
sorry, name and
Excuse
address.
me.
Sorry. Carrie Douglas, 9 Pheasant Street, speaking as a resident. If you wanted to remove the $100,000 per his suggestion, you can vote yes or no. But the reality is the revenue could be kept neutral by charging more from the parents. So if you wanted to, if his proposal is to reduce the budget, you have two choices. You can increase the revenue, I suppose, on this, or to his suggestion, parents pay the cost of the food that is being provided. So the suggestion that it's a double hit is not accurate. Thank you.
Lauren Crowley, 4 Calloway Circle, also the dining director for the district. And while I appreciate the commentary that has been given today, there are federal regulations that govern our program that are simply out of one's control. The point of the matter is the reimbursement we get comes from the federal government. When that funding is cut, which it is going to be cut, we get less per meal back. We also have declining student enrollment, which therefore puts our counts down even lower. We are doing the best we can by utilizing our commodity items that we get from the state that are only $7 a case for 40 pounds of whatever, ground beef, cheese, turkey, you name it. We are doing everything in our power. We cannot mandate that every kid takes a fruit. We cannot mandate, and we already do, charge a higher item and a higher price for those that don't choose to take the fruit and vegetable. The point of the whole matter is, and I understand the whole logic behind taxes, I get it, I'm not disputing that. It is a school nutrition program, and as it has been stated, there are families in this town that are struggling with food insecurity. Welfare has been thrown around on there, and you are literally going to take food from kids' mouths. And frankly, I'd rather see my taxes go to feeding kids. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the amendment?
Just like to respond to that. I fully agree that, the food service has done a great job. I am not discounting that. I just want to simply say that however it is handled, I believe it should be cost neutral to the taxpayer.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, we'll take a vote on this amendment. Because we have a large number of people in the room that are not voting residents, we're going to do this by hand, okay? So all of those in favor of reducing the budget by $100,000, please raise your hand. We have 1, 2, 3. I see 3. All of those not in favor of reducing the budget by $100,000, please raise your hand. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. The noes have it. So we will not be reducing the budget by $100,000. Any further questions or comments about Article 1? Seeing and hearing none, Article 1 will be moved to the ballot as presented. We now will go on to Article 2, which is the Litchfield Support Staff Association. I don't know what you're saying. Come on up to the microphone.
there an article that we're going to,
I was just told Article 3 is the special article if Article 2 fails. Is that what you're referring to?
wasn't there one for the operating budget as well?
Just for the contract.
Just for the I'm sorry, my mistake. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right, so we have Article 2. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to approve the costs and items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Litchfield School District and the Litchfield Support Staff Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing level over those paid in the prior fiscal year. Year 25-26, the estimated increase is $206,530. 26-27, it's $201,100. 27 and 28, it's $225,093. And to further raise and appropriate the sum of $206,530 for fiscal year 2026. Such sum representing the additional costs attributed to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. Majority vote is required. The estimated tax impact per thousand is 17 cents. This is recommended by the school board by a vote of 5-0-0. This is not recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 4-4-1. To this, we have school board representative Heidi Ames.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Heidi Ames. I am the vice chair of the school board. I had the pleasure with Matt Shoemaker of serving on the negotiating team for the district related to the Litchfield Support Staff Association contract that is before you. See here, I have my notes. I'm all ready for this. The Litchfield Support Staff Association is comprised of 87 positions that assist and support our school district each day. This includes paraprofessionals, custodians, grounds and maintenance, food service, administrative assistants and receptionists, and lunch and recess monitors. These employees are critical to making our school district run every single day. From feeding to cleaning, from shoveling snow to mowing lawns, from kissing boo-boos at recess to finding calm amongst the lunchroom in the middle school sometimes, to providing much needed support to our special learners, and for providing attendance dismissal processes. Our staff employees are foundational to our school operations. According to the LSSA, 53% of LSSA employees live in Litchfield and are our neighbors, our friends, and fellow taxpayers. In March of 22, the Litchfield voters approved a 3-year contract with the LSSA. And in January of 2024, as many of you know, the district was facing a hardship as it came to vacancies that were overwhelming our operations and greatly impacting our students. One of the main drivers for these vacancies was the disproportionately low pay that was compared to other districts at the time. So that month, and in March of 2024, we brought before the voters an article where we asked to increase mid-contract the wages for the LSSA. That was approved by the voters, and thank you. And I'm happy to report it worked. We were able to hire 11 critical positions during that time period since wages increased. And so with all that in mind, we came back to the table in August to come up with another contract for the next 3 years. As I said, I served on the negotiating team with Matt Shoemaker. Superintendent O'Connell was also on it, as well as our Human Resources Director, Holly Falzone. And we had our legal counsel, Mike Elwell. For the Litchfield support staff, their bargaining team was Joyce Wilcox, who was a GMS administrative assistant, Zach Bellinger, lead custodian, Andrew Gora, paraprofessional, and Darlene Zimziak, who is a food service lead, along with their representative. What we did was we came forward, and the goal of these negotiations was to retain the current staff we have. We need to maintain our numbers, as well as recruit and fill those vacant positions. At current, we have 17 open paraprofessionals. If anyone is looking for some part-time employment and wants to work for us, please fill out an application. We also have 2 custodial positions that are open. This is still difficult numbers to operate under, but it is far better than the position we were in a year ago. With the year 1 of the contract, as I said, it is a 3-year contract. There is a 4% increase. And so as you can see in each of these categories, that increases our paraprofessionals from $15.32 an hour to $15.93 an hour, custodian and grounds, food service, administrative assistants and receptionists and monitors, and you can see the comparable increases there. For year 2 and year 3 of the contracts, it is a 3.75% increase for each of those years. These numbers, while helpful, are still on the lower end of the competitive side. The district really did try to keep the taxpayer in mind as it negotiated this, as did the LSSA, because again, they are our neighbors and our friends and fellow taxpayers. And so as a district, we are asking you to please support Article 2 and support a contract for our support staff. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, so we'll open up the floor to questions or comments on Article 2.
Ron Bolinas, 15 Riverview Circle. Question. The increases that you show here in salaries, does that include the increases for what I'll call the steps within the contract?
Sorry, I missed the question. Can you say that one more time?
The increases, I'll ask it another way. Over the course of this 3-year contract, from today to the end of the contract, how much, when you include steps, will the average rate increase?
Each step is about 3%, and so then you would be adding the 3.75 to that each year. I don't have exact numbers in front of me as to what that would lead to at the end of year 3.
Tell you. The contract, the average rate, when you include the steps, will go up 22% from today, over 3 years.
Was that a question?
Is that a question? Yeah.
My question is, why do we not discuss, when we're talking about raises, it is not 4%. It is effective 7% raises when you include the steps. This is not made known to the public. I'm upset about it.
So step comes with experience, right? People can move up the pay scale as they gain experience. Yeah, that's how step works. We have plenty of workers who are on the top step who will not see that 3% step raise. They're only going to see this 4% step raise, or this 4% increase on it.
No, there's longevity payments,
Well, yeah, that's a separate thing than this altogether.
which equates to 3%.
I would have to review that. I don't think so. It's
I
usually a
have.
flat dollar amount. But, you know, like if someone's on a top step already, which a lot of people are, the only increase they're going to see is the 4% in year 1 and then 3.75.
The contract has annual 3% steps for all employees.
Right, if you're moving up the step scale. So if you're in year 1 and you move to year 2, you're going to move up 3% because your step increased.
Right?
And then the grid itself moved up 4%.
Correct. So that's a 7% raise,
For
annual
that
raise.
situation, but that's not a lot of people.
It's every employee.
No, it's not.
Excuse me,
It's
Mr.
not.
Bolinas, please stay to the questions, okay?
My question-
Don't go without open dialogue. We're not supposed to be doing that
Okay.
here. That was supposed to happen before we got here,
I
okay? So what we're doing now is we're asking questions or giving comments.
am going to have a comment.
All right, go ahead.
My comment is I disagree with the analysis. The contract for every LSSA employee has a 3% annual step until you get to year 15. Then there is longevity payments that are lump sum annual payments that on the lower end is around 4%. Further out, it comes out around 2.5%. So even the longevity payments are effectively 3% annual increases. That is before you add the 4% annual increases and the 3.75 in years 2 and 3. The net increase in employee percentage per hourly will be 22% at the end of year 3. That's excessive. My comment is this, these raises should be somewhere around, at this point, 0.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Hi.
Hi again, Lauren Crowley, 4 Callaway Circle. Just to comment on this, that I think while I understand people are upset about the contract being renegotiated last year, I do think this is very worthwhile. Oftentimes, support staff members are very overlooked. They don't get the recognition they deserve. They don't get the credibility that they deserve. They have to have certifications. They need to have chemical trainings. They need to have all these extra things that aren't seen to the public. The fact of the matter that it got passed last year is awesome, and I really hope and urge the voters to really look at this and consider your friends and your neighbors who work hard every day that affect not only your kids, your neighbors' kids, your grandkids, nieces, nephews, and your own family members that even are the ones that are affected by this. So I really urge everyone to really take this into heart and look at those really hardworking individuals that frankly deserve this and much more.
Any other questions or comments?
I don't know if anybody wants to respond, but I have another comment.
What do you want a response to?
Oh, just, they look to be lined up to say something.
I think they're just ready to answer questions.
Darlene Jimziak, 5 Arcadian Lane. I am a food service lead over at LMS, and I am also the president of the Litchfield Sports Staff Association. I am not sure what you're trying to explain. The more you spoke, the more I got confused. Many people at the top step do not get a 3% increase. They weren't getting any. It was just a longevity number, and it was a set figure. It wasn't a percentage, it's a set figure, whether it's a quarter, 35 cents, or what for. And with all the percentage of raises, and you're saying over the past 3 years, have you seen the starting salary? Food service, $13.51. And I hear comments, you know, Dunkin' Donuts, this and that. That doesn't even make $16 to work at Dunkin' Donuts. Custodians do a lot in this school. As a matter of fact, they opened up the building so you could be here. They deserve a raise. Administrative assistants who deal with the children in and out daily, they deserve a raise. Everybody up on that screen, all those positions deserve a raise. You seem to think that's a massive amount of money. This contract is for roughly, what, 87? 87 employees in this district, 87. For $600,000 or so, give or take, for 3 years. I don't think we're asking a lot. And I live in this town, I love this town, I take pride in my school, and I think all my fellow employees and coworkers should get a raise. Thank you.
Holly Falzone, Human Resources Director. I just wanted to clarify on longevity. Those are the people at the top step. It doesn't have to be 15 years. We have different salary schedules for each of those groups. Some go to a step 12, some go to a 15. Being at the top step doesn't mean you get longevity. You have to have been here for 10 to 14 years, and that only gives you 25 cents an hour. Those are the people, along with someone that will only get a 3.75% increase on a pay rate of, say, a step 12 food service is at $18.70. That will give them an extra 25 cents an hour. Also, the pay rates here, you're looking at, if you look at a paraprofessional at, or actually let's go with food service, $13.51 is the current starting rate this year. In this 3-year contract, they would get a step every year. So in the 27-28 school year, if they're on a step 1 now, they would end up on a step 4 making $16.52 an hour. I also did a comparison yesterday for current starting rates for district comparison groups, those that are right around us. Hudson, Londonderry, Pelham size comparison, and we are under all of those pay rates. A lot of them have current contracts going forward for this year, which are going to make us even further behind. These people, we do not offer benefits to as far as health or dental insurance. Other districts do. Even with this, we are way underpaying our people. Thank you.
I don't have the contract with me.
Please just say your name again.
Oh, Ronald Molinas, 15 Ruby Circle. I don't have the contract with me. I wish I did. Sorry. I believe the longevity payments are more substantial than my calculations really indicate that the annual increases are not $200,000. When you add the steps in, they're $361,000, $351,000, and $405,000, for a total of $1.1 million over this 3-year contract. My point being is these types of increases, and the teachers are in the same situation. They have annual steps that are not discussed when we're talking about percent raises. We need to talk about effective raise total. And what's going to happen with the continued increase in our taxes is going to result in a cap on the school. My observation is that in October 24, state legislature approved state caps that ties school budgets to enrollment. And if we keep going at this rate, that's what's going to be immediately.
Elizabeth McDonald, 46 Natticook Ave. I take great offense in the numbers you're throwing around because I have been here. I have been part of the budget committee negotiations, the amount of time, brainstorming, everything. Those numbers are correct, I promise you. Throwing $1 million around to mislead our taxpayers who happen to watch this on TV, 53% of those employees live in this town, and I can tell you they are beyond offended that you're saying they're getting $1 million increase.
That is, when you add the steps in, that's
they
what
added.
occurs.
No, that is not the way it works. You said you did not read the contract. I promise.
I did not.
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
We are not
Having a debate.
going to do it this way.
My apologies.
Ms.
Thank you.
McDonald, please, if you're finished.
I am finished, Mr. Perry. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Oblinus, do you have anything to say to that?
Yes. What I am saying is someone can disagree, and I would have anybody from the school board come up and tell me if I'm wrong, that in year 1 through 14, every employee gets a 3% raise due to steps. Is that correct?
You are wrong.
Mr. Lee. These are going to be the increases on the budget next year. The 206,530 is with our current staffing, the increase if this is approved next year. That includes step. If this is voted down, people still move up on the step scale because they're here an additional year, and we have to factor in that cost when we do the operating budget in Article 1. This is the numbers. This is it. These are the increases. We have to run this through legal. We have to run this through 1 million people. These are the numbers of the increases.
What would the estimated increase be if the percentages were zero?
It would be our current stuff right now. You take the $206 out. If we don't pass this contract, the current money pay just carries over from this year to next year.
That what you just said is my point. Those numbers represent the 4% increase, not the steps.
But they get the step next year because they're here working an additional year.
In addition to that, that's my point.
It doesn't freeze their step.
Huh?
It doesn't freeze their step if this doesn't pass.
That is exactly my point.
All right, let's move on. Next question, please. State Rep in the House.
Raymond Peoples, 205 Charles Bancroft Highway. Can we call the question, please?
Question has been called. We have to take a vote on calling the question, correct? All those in favor of calling the question, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? So that deems the question called, which means Article 1, I'm sorry, that is Article 2, will go on the ballot as presented. We are now moving on to Article 3. The LSSA contingency meeting. Article 3 says, shall the Litchfield School District, if Article 2 is defeated, authorize the Litchfield School Board to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 2 cost items only. Majority vote is required. This is recommended by the school board by a vote of 5-0-0. Heidi, do you have anything that you want to add?
Just to say that if for whatever reason this contract doesn't pass, we will be in the same problem we were in a year and a half ago, where we will be losing employees, and we are asking the Litchfield voters to give us the opportunity to go back and try and renegotiate this contract. This language has been in there before. Certainly happy to take any questions.
Hi, Ronald Blaine, 15 Ruby Circle. My question is, what does this actually mean in the sense of what is the mechanism that will occur if this is approved? And if the school contract, the LSSA contract is defeated, what will then happen based on this?
This would give the school board, the director, the allowance to have another meeting to vote on just this one article.
Would it be?
So it would be a special election for one article.
Is it a town-wide election?
Yes.
Okay, that's my question.
Yes.
So if we voted it down, they could put it forth as another election?
No. It would have to be, I believe, the same article that's already presented.
No, but it would be.
It can be different?
We can renegotiate to come up with different numbers that might pass.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That's a good point of clarification.
Okay. Any questions or comments other than that on Article 3? Seeing none. Article 3 will be on the ballot as presented. We now go to Article 4, part-time athletic trainer. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $48,605 for the purpose of funding the salary and benefit costs for a part-time district-wide athletic trainer position to provide athletic training services to student athletes, as well as to provide support to the athletic director as needed. This position will be included in next year's default budget. Majority vote is required. The estimated tax impact is 4 cents per thousand. This is recommended by the school board by a vote of 5-0-0. This is recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 9-0-0. To this, we will have school board member Tina Harrison.
The athletic trainer is directly involved in the phases of healthcare for student athletes, including injury prevention, injury evaluation, immediate first aid, and rehabilitation. They assist the coaches by advising and treating athletes to maintain maximum physical performance and health, and take care of our student athletes. Currently, the district is contracting for these services for approximately $40,000 annually for 20 hours a week. And these contractual services are projected to increase annually to approximately $60,000 by the 2030-31 school year. And so in order to realize savings over time while expanding the services available, the district has put together this warrant article asking for a part-time athletic trainer position for the cost associated would be $48,605. And improving Article 4 would increase the amount of time as a trainer is available to our student athletes to 30 hours a week. And I believe this is for both CHS and LMS. Is that true? Yes. So these would be trainers for our athletes at LMS and at CHS, which we are required to have for all of our teams. I'm open to any questions.
We'll open Article 4 up to questions and comments. Seeing none. Article 4 will be moved to the ballot as presented. We now have Article 5, Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $250,000 to be added to the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund established in 2005 for the purpose of funding school capital improvements, building maintenance and repairs in the Litchfield and building maintenance and repairs in the Litchfield School District. Majority vote is required. The estimated tax impact is 20 cents per thousand. Recommended by the school board by a vote of 5-0-0. Recommended by the Budget Committee by a vote of 8-0-0. Again, Ms. Harrison?
Thank you. The purpose of this warrant article is to raise and appropriate $250,000 to deposit into the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund, which can be used in the future for significant maintenance and repairs to the facilities in the district. The intent is for this to be the first deposit and to seek voter approval for annual contributions so that we can proactively plan to cover upcoming facility needs. In November of 2024, Onsite Insight completed a capital needs assessment of all 3 schools in the district and identified potential capital needs project over a 20-year period. Some of the big ticket items needed at our 2 newer schools are replacing the roof and HVAC roof units at Campbell High School in the next 5 years. That is shown on the slide as at an estimate of $1,752,932. That would include the roof, the HVAC systems, the fire detection system, and a 10% in contingency. Those prices go up by approximately 3% in years 2030 and 31. In addition, another recommended project was at Litchfield Middle School, performing a civil engineering study reconfiguring the roadways and parking lots at LMS to correct failing drainage and meet ADA compliance in the next 5 years. That would be an additional cost of about $500,000. The report also cites plans and costs for repairs, maintenance, and replacement at Griffin Memorial School. While the future of the GMS facility is still undetermined, we do expect that costly repairs and replacements will be necessary to keep the school functioning until a solution is completed. Many of the GMS systems have failed or are well beyond their useful life and will need repair or replacement to keep the school functioning. By beginning to put money in the Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund this year and in subsequent years, the district will be able to withdraw from this fund in the future to cover the costs of necessary repairs and maintenance without having to secure a bond. The current balance of this fund is $368,284. The appropriations for Article 4 would bring the balance to just over $618,000.
I would like to open the floor to questions or comments on Article 5.
Guess who?
Oh, you did.
Hi.
Name and address.
Ronald Blaine, 15 Riverview Circle. Question. The referenced on-site insight report looked at all 3 schools, if I understand correctly, and estimated over a 20-year period the amount of needed capital improvements. Can you break down for the folks here what the annual cost for each school and the total for all 3 was from that report?
I know.
With respect, Mr. Oblinus, you should know that. You reviewed these reports at length on the Facilities Committee.
I want to know if you know them.
Not off the top of my head, I'd have to look at the report.
Oh, I'll tell you if you want then.
I'm sorry?
I can tell you if you want.
Well, I'm not sure why you're asking an inverse question to the board.
The reason being is we are picking out of that number, which totals $28 million. Excuse me. Yes, $28 million. Bits and pieces. That whole report has not been vetted yet as to what is the appropriate thing over 20 years or a 10-year period, including GMS. To My objection to this particular approach is that there will be bonds required for that amount of money. We should be looking at the total needs for the district, not picking and choosing and somehow indicating to taxpayers that it's only $250,000 a year, maybe $500 next year. There needs to be a complete review of that, and that's what the FIC committee, of which I'm on, is looking at. And I think this is premature until that whole effort, including what to do with GMS, is completed. You noted you have 300 and some odd thousand currently in the capital reserve fund. You're using 34,000 to fix the stairways at GMS. You were just authorized 25,000 to fix the fascias out of that. And you have presented to you a recommendation to spend about $30,000 to put in delayed access push bars at GMS. So there is things being done, and the FIC is scheduled to give you a recommendation of what to do at GMS by the end of March, per your direction. And until all this work is done and put together, this is another example of, fire, ready, and aim. It is, I agree that the roof will need to be done. I agree with that. But those numbers are a fraction of what that report said. And it needs to be looked at in total, not picked apart. And that's my objection to this warrant article.
Okay. Ms. Harrison, would you like to respond?
Thank you for pointing out that the report did come back with $28 million in needed repairs over the next 20 years. The purpose of this article is to begin saving money to be able to put forward to those known needs. The CHS roof HVAC detection system that I mentioned and the LMS drainage issues that need to be corrected are issues that will need to be funded within the next 5 years. Those are just examples. This is not saying that this is what the money is going towards, and I appreciate that the work that the FIC committee is putting forward in determining our next steps for GMS. But we are also using that 300, I'm sorry, I lost the number, the 360 that's currently in the building repair fund to correct boiler pipe issues. We've had a hole in the roof in the first grade wing that we need to repair so that birds and animals don't continue to come into classrooms while students are in place. And there was one other, I said the first. Yep. And the ramp, the ramp's no longer functioning at the GMS kindergarten. So we have no needs. This is just a warrant article to raise and appropriate funds to be able to address those needs. These are just examples of the things that we need to start planning for.
Question on the floor?
Thank you. Good morning. Mike Yanuszkowicz, 20th Century Lane, Litchfield. Before my question, animals and things getting through the roof, I would think that might be fun for the kids, right? Good biology lesson there, maybe. I have a clarifying question about the fire detection system. I assume that does not mean sprinklers as well. Is that correct? This is just detecting fire, or is it sprinklers as well?
The CHS does have sprinklers. This is for this is the estimate for the project at CHS. So that's just to update the fire detection system.
Okay. My understanding is that Griffin.
Yeah. It is working, by the way.
Sorry?
It is working. It's just at the end.
Okay. No. So yeah. The only reason I ask is because my understanding is that GMS, neither the main building nor the extension buildings have sprinkler systems. So that's why I was asking, is that strictly detection, or does that include sprinklers as well? So I guess the answer is it does not include any sprinkler systems.
No, this is just for the fire detection at CHS.
Okay. Oh, at CHS. Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Excellent. Any further questions or comments on Article 5? Seeing none. Article 5 will be moved to the ballot as presented. Before we get started with Article 6, I'd like to open the microphone to Vice Chair Heidi Ames.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the board, I have the pleasure of saying a few words about our outgoing board member, Christina Harrison, who didn't know I was talking about her, by the way. Tina was elected to the board in 2016, and in the 9 years and 2 re-elections since then, she has worked tirelessly to improve the quality of education in Litchfield. As an educator to our youngest learners, Tina's perspective and input was and is incredibly valuable. One of her biggest achievements was her time and dedication to the issue of full-day kindergarten and the strong educational foundation it would offer to our students. She also put in countless hours towards finding a solution to GMS, and while that issue still needs to be resolved, she provided the groundwork for many of our current discussions. Another passion of Tina's is the arts. She is a strong advocate for music and arts in our schools, even lending her hand to several shows, including the district-wide performance of The Wizard of Oz, Clue, Descendants, and I'm gonna get this one, the Holiday Channel winter movie Wonderthon. I also hear she may be helping out with an upcoming production of Footloose, but that's just a rumor. Over the years, Tina was sometimes the voice of dissent. She had the courage and conviction to speak up and advocate for her position, even if it didn't match the popular opinion at the time. As current and former board members, many of whom are in the audience or on the stage, will tell you, it's important to have that wide array of opinions on a board so that you can properly vet an issue and have healthy debate. For 9 years, Tina has provided steadfast dedication to Litchfield students and education as a whole. She sacrificed time with her family, and believe me when I tell you, it is a lot of time. She did so all with the hopes of improving the lives of students in Litchfield. Tina, talking to you, but I gotta face the microphone. Your voice will be missed. And although I hope you still, send in correspondence every once in a while, maybe stop by for some public comment, we will miss you greatly. Please join me in thanking Tina for her time and dedication to our district. I went the wrong way. Thank you.
Welcome. All right, so now we will move on to Article 6, which is Employee Benefits Reserve Fund. Before I read Article 6, Article 6, Article 7, and Article 8, there was a miscommunication, whatever we want to say. There was a couple of words that were different in the published documents as what was approved by the actual school board itself. I am going to read what was approved. If anybody disagrees with that or has any comments, please feel free, okay? Article 6, shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,253 to be added to the Employee Benefits Reserve Fund established in 2022 for the purpose of funding the payment of negotiated employee benefits, including but not limited to health insurance reimbursements, changes in coverage or policies chosen by employees, severance benefits, and such other benefits as are from time to time negotiated and become contractual obligations of the district. With this sum to come from the June 30th fund balance available for transfer on July 1 of this year, with no additional amount to be raised from taxation. This amount is consistent with the amount raised for severance payments that are not paid out in fiscal year 2025 and therefore will be paid out in subsequent years. Majority vote is required. The estimated tax impact of this is 0. Recommended by the school board by a vote of 500. Recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 900. To this, we will have Chairman Andrew Cutter to speak.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moderator. So a few years back, the board had established the Employee Benefits Fund, and this is a result of actually a lot of communication from Ms. Douglas and the Budget Committee. Every year, historically, the school board had put in budget money to cover off employees that were anticipated to retire. And really what was happening was some employees at the end of the year had decided to retire and some elected to stay with the district for another year, resulting in some budgeting money that we had to rebudget for the following year. This fund was established to prevent the retaxation of money into the taxpayers and put the money that we already set aside in the budget into a fund for those specific employees. This particular year, we need to add $2,253 to that fund to cover the additional fund or payment owed to an employee that is not going to be paid out. The current balance in that account right now is $185,653.50. This will be added to that balance and set aside again for employees when they do decide to retire.
Okay.
Any questions?
I will now open the floor to questions or comments about Article 6. Seeing none, Article 6 will be moved to the ballot as presented. Article 7, Special Education Capital Reserve Fund. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum up to a sum of $200,000 to be added to the Special Education Capital Reserve Fund established in 2004 for the purpose of educating disabled students. With this sum to come from the June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1 of this year with no additional amount to be raised from taxation. Majority vote is required. The estimated tax impact is 0. This is recommended by the school board by a vote of 500, and it's recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 500. Again, to speak on this, we have Chair Andrew Cutter.
And recommended by the budget committee 800.
Oh, what did I say?
5.
What was that?
500.
My bad.
That's all right.
You're right. 800.
Thank you. So again, several years ago, the board had set up a special education reserve fund in the event that we need to cover additional costs for special education students. This is a necessary account for the board for those special education costs. As mentioned, we are receiving less revenue into our operating budget from the state, and there's continued increasing costs for special education across the board. In fact, not to get into specifics, but we have had an increase in students for special education needs into our district, most recently as of a few weeks ago. We have this reserve fund set aside. We are going to need to tap into this reserve account this fiscal year in order to withdraw from that fund and cover our actual expenses this year. This $200,000 is absolutely essential for us because we need to have money set aside going into next year. Currently, we have just over 150. What's the current? 166. Thank you. We have $166,000 in that account right now. We're looking to increase that to $200,000. Again, mainly because of decrease in revenue and increase in costs, which is why we're looking for an increase in that account.
Okay. Open the floor to questions or comments on Article 7. Seeing none, Article 7 will be moved to the ballot as presented. Next, we have Article 8, Capital Improvements Expendable Trust Fund. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to raise and appropriate this sum, appropriate up to a sum of $125,000 to be added to the Capital Improvements Expendable Trust Fund established in 2020 for the purpose of funding the study, planning, and cost of a new construction or renovation of existing facilities in the Litchfield School District. With this sum to come from the June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1 of this year, with no additional amount to be raised from taxation. This amount is consistent with the capital plan adopted by the town of Litchfield in September 2020. Majority vote is required. The estimated tax impact is 0. This is recommended by the school board of a vote 500. This is not recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 350. To this, we have school board member Peter Polanski.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The current balance in this fund is about $317,000. This fund is used for design work to reduce bond costs and get estimates for construction. So we are working on a solution for GMS. We will need some money set aside to, at some point, whatever the decision is, for planning, our engineering work. I know to your heart's content, Ron, the engineering work will need to be done. So this is something that's sort of been traditional for us to set this money aside to do this as we go forward. Again, to Mr. Oblentz's point, there's a lot of work to be done at all three schools. It will require proper planning, and it's our current reality with the condition of our three schools. I would take any questions.
I'd like to open the floor to questions or comments.
Hi, Mike Anaskovich, 20th Century Lane. I was told I have to move to this side if I'm a voting resident. Otherwise, comments might not be considered. So here I am. On the existing facilities and the new construction or renovation, is there anything like an itemized list that you have that you're considering? And if so, is anything on that list, does anything on that list kind of overlap with what the Facilities Improvement Committee is currently working on?
I don't think we have a list, but what the Facilities Improvement Committee will want to do as we come to a decision is there's money we're going to have to expend to move that decision forward. That's what these funds would be used for.
Sure. So when, and maybe you can't answer this question, when does the Facilities Improvement Committee release its final report? I guess I should know that.
We've been instructed to have a plan, or at least a primary suggestion back to the school board by the end of March, the second meeting in March.
All right. So at that point, I assume that maybe this number would be reevaluated in light of what they recommend. Perhaps there are things that the Facilities Improvement Committee will consider, or at least recommend, that you may not have to worry about completely in this particular.
I don't think the number would change because it would have been voted on already. So if this 125,000 goes in, it's going to be 435 or whatever that number is.
Okay.
It doesn't mean it's just going to be used for a GMS. There's going to be a project down the road that we need to do planning for, and this money would be there for that as well.
Sure. No, when I saw this, I just thought, with the work going on, there might be some overlap here, and there might be some efficiency that we could gain. So, thank you.
I guess that's possible.
Thank you. Next.
Ron Blaine, 15 River Circle. Couple of observations. I'll go back to what I said before. This is double dipping to me in the sense that we're asking for $250,000 to go in the capital reserve. Now we're going to take another 125, and we still haven't got an overall plan, as Mike asked the question. So there's 317,000. There is a companion capital reserve for design, which I think has a similar amount. So I think we have in reserve somewhere in the order of $600,000 to respond to any emergencies. That's what this will carry us through till we come to a plan of what we need to do. There will be bonding required to respond to our capital needs in the school. And this hit or miss approach, I think, is wrong. Secondly, what I object to also, where's the information on the impact of tax? Is that on this slide? Okay. Estimated tax impact, $0. This is a case in which we're taking what's called unassigned dollars at the end of the year. You budgeted approximately to be $200,000 under budget, and that will be your assumed unassigned. But as you pointed out, it fluctuates substantively year to year. In fact, this past year, there was about $1 million of unassigned, 1.1 thereabouts, returned this year because of the land sale and a lot of unfilled positions. What I am objecting to, and this is being done on the town side, is up I will admit my ignorance of what this mechanism is. Every time I had seen in the past, and again, it's my ignorance, seen a zero, I had assumed that somehow this money was coming from grants or something that wasn't related to our taxes. What it essentially says is that monies that are left over the year are going to be applied to these instead of come back to us as a credit on our taxes. So it is not a zero tax impact. And people need to understand that. In fact, the total of the unassigned for the school side here, if we add them all up, is $427,000. On the town side, it's $397,000. That's being asked to be voted yes from unassigned. That particular figure would reduce our taxes by about 73 cents a thousand if all those unassigned are voted no. That is 73 cents of taxation. It is not zero impact. And I have great objection to it being presented without a discussion of what you don't get back if you vote this.
Okay.
Hold
on.
Okay.
That was your question, or that was your statement?
That's my statement. I have a question.
All right, get to your question, please.
My question is, I would like to have the, what is the reasons that the Budget Committee did not recommend this?
Anybody want to step up to answer that? Go right ahead, over there.
I voted against this for a few of the same reasons you have. One, it's, in my opinion, redundant. Two, there's $300,000 already in this fund. Three, we don't have a plan yet, so what are we designing for? So, to me, this is not an emergency thing to fund this year. When we're looking at the tax impact, and while I appreciate the opinion regarding the no tax impact, I feel you, I hear you. There's legal obligations though. Like we can't, because the way it's worded, no additional tax revenue. This has already been taxed. We're rocking a hard spot. You want wording changed? Talk to him. So realistically, it's where our hands are tied on what goes on the ballot based on RSAs. I agree with you that it's money that could go back, but there's no guarantee that that would even happen anyway. They could use the unexpended funds for other projects. So by not spending it, there's no guarantee that you're just going back to offset your tax revenue. But ultimately, my vote against this one is we don't have a project yet to design. And it is, this article, or this fund has always been sold as the GMS fund. We don't know what we're doing at GMS. And right now, 300 grand, in my opinion, is enough to cover whatever we discuss in the next year. So that was my no.
Okay, so I'm going to now open the, unless somebody else has to answer that question as well. Looks like you're going to get a few.
Doug LaPlante. The reason I voted no for this, I think it was important to include Article 5. That was a yes vote for me. I think we need to look ahead in the future and save for the maintenance type items that these schools require, fixing holes in roofs, smaller maintenance issues. We need to have a nest egg for that, savings for that. We shouldn't be taking out bonds and loans to fix those maintenance type issues. The reason voting no for this article was I think I'd like to hear the plan for the FIC before we allocate monies towards a fix that we don't know what that is yet. That's a larger term capital improvements project of what's going to happen with GMS, planning, engineering, that sort of thing. So although we need money to fix things today, I would support Article 5. I think the larger term capital improvement projects, we need to understand a little bit more with the FIC, what needs to happen. So that was my vote for no for this.
Scott Taylor, Budget Committee. I voted no on this. Same reason that's already been stated. There is no real plan for it. 300,000 is sufficient at this point to be able to take care of that. Second of all, I don't need to add another 125,000 in case it decides to get rated for other purposes again.
Okay. Next question on the floor.
Ray Peoples, 205 Charles Bancroft Highway. I rise to speak to this article and why it's required. As a member of the FIC committee and hopefully an answer to a long nagging problem for GMS, we need to be able to move quickly and rapidly when we finally get to an idea. That's going to require engineering and feasibility studies to make sure that idea pans out and that it is something that we can bring to the town as a solution and get approved at warrant. I applaud the school district for setting up the FIC to begin with. After many failed bond issues to replace the school in its entirety, they put together a very large team of citizens with various skills that are working very diligently towards a solution. Not just a new school has been considered, all kinds of other options in conjunction with the school board. So I would highly regret getting to where we needed an extra $125,000 to flesh out a plan, not have that money to do it. So I'm going to vote in favor of this.
Next question.
Yeah, point of clarification. Some of the responses indicated on the school side, if they have unassigned fund balance, does it not have to go back as a tax credit?
So once these are voted by the voter, right?
No, I'm just not with the warrant articles. I'm talking at the end of the year.
Right. So I'm going to explain the process.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So once these articles are voted, and say they're voted yes by the taxpayer, in June, the sequence of these articles matter, right? Because that's the sequence in which the money is put into the reserve accounts. If there's money come Article 8 and come Article 9, those will get funded. If there's money after Article 9, then the board will consider encumbrances.
Consider what?
Encumbrances. So any money that the board decides is important to address needs within the district, we can encumber in order to address those needs.
And what's the process for that, if you don't?
The board can consider recommendations from the superintendent, from building administrators. We discuss it at typically our last meeting in June, and then we can vote as a board on what that process is, what we deem is important, and that money is considered encumbered for those specific needs and projects. After that, the board also votes on the money to be returned to the taxpayer at that meeting.
On the town side, it's different, as I understand.
No, it's the same process.
It'd be the same process.
Yeah, they don't have to, that's true. The town does not have to return money to the taxpayer. They can encumber, and then it goes to the unassigned fund balance.
But they have the option to, based upon the Board of Selectmen's decision, correct?
Chair Leary, would you like to come up and speak to that process?
Bob Leary, Chairman, Board of Selectmen. Hi, Ron.
Hi.
We have basically the same system that they do, other than we put extra monies into an unassigned fund balance, which we are required to carry by law, which you know about. But we do also, we can buy things down at the end of the year. If there's extra money, like I had mentioned at last week's deliberative, using it for purchase of a police cruiser for our badly depleted fleet, things like that. So we can do that. We do the same thing.
Does it mean that if the, sorry, just point of understanding.
Yep.
If the two police cruisers that are on the warrant article fail, Even if the voters say no, you could still go ahead and buy them?
No. No, then that money goes into the unassigned fund balance. Yeah. Well, you can encumber at the end of the year, but anything on the ballot would have to go back in, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if the voters vote no, then there's no cruises. Okay, they'll walk the calls.
Next question on the floor.
Scott Taylor, 6 Lilac Court. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to call the question. This conversation has nothing to do with Article 8 at this time.
So we have a motion to call the question. Do I have a second? I have a second to call the question. All those in favor of calling the question, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Question has been called. So we will now, that is Article 8. Article 8 will be on the ballot as presented. We will now go to Article 9, which is the Solar Array Fund. Shall the Litchfield School District vote to establish a capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35-1 to be known as the Solar Array Fund for the purpose of accumulating funds to acquire the solar equipment at the Litchfield Middle School at the end of the 6-year agreement, and to raise and appropriate the sum of up to the sum of $100,000 to be placed in this fund, with this sum to come from the June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1 of this year, with no additional amount to be raised from taxation. And further, to designate the school board as agents to expend this fund. Majority vote is required. The estimated tax impact is 0, recommended by the school board by a vote of 5-0-0, recommended by the budget committee by a vote of 6-2-0. On this, we will have school board chair Andrew Cutter.
All right, thank you again, Moderator Perry. So the Solar Array Fund is a newly established fund, should it be approved by the voters this year. As many of you know, or maybe not, LMS has a new solar array on top of the building. It consists of 880 panels, and it's scheduled to finally go live over February break. This was voter approved in January of 23, yes, and it's taken quite a road to get to this point. Over February break, it will be turned on and go live. It could be, the reality is it could go live now. The board and the superintendent and business administrator have discussed it, and we felt it was in the best interest of the students and the faculty and staff to flip the switch, so to speak, when the building is unoccupied. The entire project will be complete over the summer, and the actual first year of the contract will officially kick in July. What that means for us as a district is the actual contract in the first year of the contract will start in July. The district has been taking advantage of the power purchase agreement, or what we refer to as the PPA, since the contract has been signed. We pay an annual fixed rate of $97,000 on this contract, and we have since the contract's been signed. We are saving money since this contract's been signed. I want to make that clear. The contract has a 6-year buyout. It also has a 10-year buyout and a 25-year buyout, the way the contract's written. This solar array fund will allow us to start chipping away and saving money so we can put away money now, so in 6 years we have funds set aside to make the payoff of the solar array system. Year 6 purchase estimate is $544,875. So this $100,000 will start to add, and annually the idea is we're going to put $100,000 in this fund. So in year 6, we have the money set aside to buy the fund, or buy the array. The terms of the contract are year 1 through year 6 fixed at the $97,000. Year 7, the contract becomes variable. Year 7 through year 25, it's variable per year with increasing rates per year. This slide here, Article 9, this slide here shows you kind of the rates broken out on what this means. Year 7 through year 25, if the lease is continued, there's a variable payment with an approximate 3% increase per year. In year 7, our payment goes from $97,000 to $114,237. In year 25, if we continue with that variable lease, it goes to $194,146. If we continue with the lease payment option, the combined payments of year 7 through year 25 are $2,866,497. This is why we're proposing to purchase the system in year 6 for $544,875, and why we'd like to start setting aside some money to purchase this array and setting it aside for $100,000 a year. One of the other things that we've learned about the array is, with all of the communications equipment and the failure rates behind all the equipment to make the system work, we want to start setting aside money so this system maintains operational efficiency and maximum output. We want this fund to be continuous, so we have money set aside to keep the maintenance of this array system operational. So this is a fund not just for the array and the purchase of the array. This fund will maintain the maintenance of the array going forward as well. So we have funds set aside for not only the purchase, but for the maintenance of the array. At this time, Mr. Moderator, questions?
Open the floor to questions or comments.
I make an observation. One thing that's really disappointing is how few people are here. But I think that's indicative as people have already made up their minds on what they will do. Stop there. My question is, am I not correct in calling that excuse me, can you go back one slide?
Sure.
That up until recently, the projected cost was $677,000.
It's not true.
But in the draft that I was sent, that's the figure.
That's not true.
All right. When you say go operational, does that mean the entire system has been completed?
No, as I just said, the system will be fully operational in July when the system's complete, and that includes the battery energy storage system, or what's referred to as a BESS.
Okay, so it is not operational. What will be
It is operational. The energy storage system piece of it is not going to be installed and live until July. So we're not saving the energy until that's operational, but we are benefiting from the array starting at the end of February.
You mentioned maintenance. Has there been a projection of maintenance of the system?
Not yet, because we're still covered under warranties of parts. And we have now received various warranties and schedules for various components of the array, and some of them vary in terms and length, et cetera. And we have received a local firm that actually installed the array. They're based out of Merrimack, that we could contract with should we decide to do that.
What I suggest is, before you do anything, is that you somehow actually accurately review the cost of ownership and maintenance of the system, because your cost-benefit analysis is incomplete without that side of it. For instance, battery system is incredibly important for us to own, because that's how the storage during the day is what powers the buildings at night. That particular item is a huge cost item, and they have a very limited service life. And that'll eat substantively into your projected savings. So the total project here, until you look at the complete, is not fully vetted. So I would argue that this should be delayed until that's done.
Next question. Or comment.
Well, Carrie Douglas, 9 Pheasant Street. I'm intrigued as to the change in the tone of this conversation, because when we voted for All right, mix. Both budget committee member, wishing I could change my vote based on what you just said, as opposed to what we discussed at the budget committee hearing meeting about this. When I voted yes on this, it was with the understanding that we had not decided yet if we were going to buy it or continue the lease. That perhaps this fund could be used to offset the increased electricity value that we would experience if we chose to continue with the lease. Because we don't know, do we need to replace the batteries or any of our panels at 10 years? What is it going to cost to dispose of this process? What is the cost of the various materials? There is too big of a wild card factor to make the decision yet to purchase or to continue to lease. But the understanding when I voted yes was that this was going to help us either buy it or offset future expenses. I was not committing to buying it out because I did not have the information necessary at the time or even likely to commit to a buyout.
So with respect, right, that's for 2 boards from now to decide, right?
But you just said this is intended for purchase and maintenance. That's not how it was set up. It was set up to determine the offset of cost of year 6 and beyond. So I don't want anybody, so I voted yes, but I did not vote yes for a purchase. I voted yes because something needs to be done in year 6 and we need to have money prepared for that, but it may not be a purchase. It may be to help offset electricity increase costs.
I am relying upon what the article reads, accumulating funds to acquire the solar equipment. Accumulating funds to acquire the solar equipment.
All right, well, then the conversation that was had about using it was not reflected in the final discussion of the final school board article, because that is not what I voted for.
Any other questions or comments on Article 9? Seeing none. Article 9 will be moved to the ballot as presented. With that being said, we have completed all our warrant articles for today's deliberative session.
Mr. Chair, or moderator?
Oh, yes.
There's a couple of other slides. I just want to make sure they're presented.
Okay, go ahead.
So just to recap, in summary, right, and I know that the town did this last week, warrant articles with the tax impact, Article 1, 2, 4, and 5. The total with tax impact would result in an estimated $2.31. And warrant articles from unassigned fund balance, I know Mr. Oblinus mentioned this, Article 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. The total, as mentioned earlier, would be $427,253. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Moderator.
Now, with that being said, we've completed all our warrant articles for today's deliberative session. Please remember that voting on these articles will occur on March 11th, 2025, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the gymnasium at the other end of the building. Here, I will ask, is there any other business to come before this meeting? Please remember to turn your ballot sheets onto the stage or to the ballot clerks outside at the table before you leave. Hearing no requests for further business at this time, I will accept a motion to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion carries. I will call this meeting to a close at 11:54. Thank you very much. Stay warm and get ready for some